It's Spoilerin time, folks. This is the show where we talk about an old-timey show, maybe something on a free ad-supported channel, something like that. We're wrapping up the greatest guest spots in Miami Vice history run. And this week, we are talking about the series finale. It's actually not the last episode of Miami Vice aired, but it is the finale. And it should have been the last episode aired because it does wrap up Miami Vice at the end. It is called Free Fall. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Heck yes, sir. So the reason that this popped up on our radar is because it had Ian McShane on it, and he did a passable.
It's the series finale. It's got Ian McShane, and it has Robert Beltran, who played Chakotay on the Voyager series.
Correct. Unfortunately, well, we'll get to this eventually, but turns out I also watched the episode after the finale.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it's got Cousin Avi. It's got Dennis Farina in it, which I was like, how did we not talk about this? I'm like, oh, because this is one of the unaired episodes that happened after it. But the general conceit, it seemed like they were just trying to go for like movie level bigness and contemporary in the moment storytelling, where it's like Ian McShane is playing kind of a stand-in for General Noriega. Is that right?
Yeah. It's a rip from the headlines kind of like, this is similar to things that actually happen in the world, and our Miami Vice heroes get caught up in it. That's definitely how it felt.
And episode 1 is very much where it's like he's all bluff and bluster at the beginning, like, oh, we don't really, I don't need a finance minister. In fact, I'm electing a new one now, bullet to the head. And I'm impenetrable and tough. But then what we figure out is that he's also imprisoned by a web of American interests or just international cartel interests?
I think it's multiple interests. So it's the cartel, the Americans, and more. But that would imply I paid closer attention than I did, to be honest.
I mean, to be honest, it's really most television shows, Tom, die with not a bang but a whimper, and that's the impression I really got from both episode 1 and episode 2 of this two-parter. What about you?
And it's only in 2 parts in syndication. So if you go watch it on Tubi, you're going to see part 1 and part 2. When it aired at the end of Miami Vice's actual broadcast run, it aired all as a special. It's the Miami Vice series finale, the last episode ever, which is weird because it didn't feel like a finale. And I wondered, like, oh, is one of the unaired episodes the actual finale? And this is going to be like a weird ending. But then they get that tacked on bit at the end. Where
do we want to jump straight to that, or do we want to at least?
No, because we're talking about a finale. So I we can go back and talk about other stuff. In part 1, I was like, why are we seeing Switek with a gambling thing? Because they never mentioned that again in part 1. Oh, it turns out in part 2, it pays off, but it only pays off with Switek going like, yes. I do have a gambling problem, but I'd never betray my friends because this is the series finale. And then at the very end, they are busted by the government, and the government says, Crockett and Tubbs, you'll never work in this town again. And Crockett and Tubbs say, well, you can have our badges then. Here you go. And Castillo says, you don't have to do that. I've been in Blade Runner. And Crockett and Tubbs say, nope, that's what we're going to do because there's no more budget for Miami Vice. And then there's one last scene with the car, the emblematic car, and Crockett makes some vague thing about, I'm going to go south, real far south, where the beer's cold and the water's warm. And Tubbs is like, I guess I'm going back to Queens. And then Crockett makes a joke about, have you ever considered joining Southern law enforcement? Which is odd because Florida is about as far south as you could get in the United States
literally
already.
the most far south you can go. At this point, in my imagination, and I'm making this part up, it's that PETA ad with Sarah McLachlan playing, because it cuts to like a third generation dub of VHS clips.
Oh, wait, yeah, like seriously bad generation clips, which I don't know if that's the way it was aired because they just did copies or what, but it's, I guess, supposed to be a montage of all of our memories of Miami Vice. Is it?
Tom, I have never wanted more to engage in fair use copyright violation than right now to make everybody see just how distorted, because think about how the show began, about how we were thinking like, oh my God, it's precise, it's film.
Yeah,
You've got this
yeah.
incredible font on there. Everything is crisp and clean. Like, this is the font is the wrong color. It's warbling in the copy of a copy.
I don't know if, it's easy to go like that was awful. And it could be that the way it was preserved,
assembled,
only kept part 1 and part 2 without the montage. And someone said, well, the montage was there at the beginning, and the only version of the montage they had was a bad copy. And so they stuck it on. I have no idea if that's true or not.
I was going to say that we have seen precedents for that with like Star Trek: The Next Generation. The principal photography was all done in film, but then they did very, very cheap digital effects over it. And so they had to do like some remastering to even make it, not laughable in the streaming age. This one remains fairly laughable.
Yeah. I'm looking up the end credits for this episode are significantly extended and set to clips taken from episodes across the entire series. The wiki line figured out what each one of those clips is, but it says nothing about why it's so bad resolution.
I just have to Occam's razor, man. It's got to be maybe there was a different assembly for broadcast, or maybe it didn't look so bad over broadcast.
Yeah, I'm sure it didn't, because it's a lower resolution medium to begin with.
We'll get back to the ending, but Ian McShane as Generalissimo Noriega was fine. I just kept waiting for him to see his famous phrase from Deadwood.
Yeah.
His accent slips in and out, but it was really interesting because he was so prevalent. Since we watched it as 2 episodes, he was so prevalent in episode 1, and then was just there for 1 scene in episode 2, which means that that leads me to believe that it was written as 2 episodes that were sort of mashed up for one kind of grand finale.
Maybe. The story is that it was written as 1 episode. It was meant to be the finale. So, and the Switek bit implies that was the case, because it doesn't make any sense to have that scene in part 1, because you never go back to it again. But if it was all 1 episode, it fits all right. There's also way too many fake outs in part 2. Like, they're just constantly so many fake outs. He's not here. You missed him. Like that. I gave up trying to keep track.
Tom?
Yeah.
Can we just say it out loud?
What?
This finale was terrible.
It was bad. Yeah. It's not a good finale.
It was quite bad.
And it got worse. It actually started better than it ended.
Yes, because it started off like an episode of, I don't know, Miami Vice.
Yeah.
And it ended like a fan cut of what they would think.
Did you catch the still photo with the zoom of Tubbs?
I mean, they've done stuff.
Yeah. But it was real obvious with
they
that
have
one.
done stuff like that before, or it's like they'll cut down to like 3 frames per second for a shoot scene or whatever. But I did notice that we're still in the age of, like, for no apparent reason, like, finally they're excited because they're allowed to use blood effects or squibs and so on. And weirdly, it's interesting because watching them try to be a movie in the beginning without ever violating the rules of primetime television, you could tell they were solving for a puzzle. But then by the end, it's like, okay, you can do all the blood, we don't care. And it's like every fight scene is the most boring garbage. And I just, like, quite literally, once the Uzis came out, I was like, I think I got an email I gotta take a look at or something.
And yes, TF87 rightly pointing out that the remark about a career in Southern law enforcement was a callback to the beginning of the show, but it just didn't make any sense to me.
Well,
I also
especially
like that they
because
were able to. I couldn't tell if. No, I take this back. At first, I thought it was really bad that they were shooting a plane out of the sky with a revolver. Although I guess Sonny had the bigger gun. But then I do think it was meant to be like, hey, wait, we shouldn't have been even bothering wasting our bullets. We can't shoot a plane. There must have been an explosive aboard that plane. But also, why were they shooting at it?
I mean, to be honest, like again, my favorite part of watching this show has been trying to figure out the production stuff. And it's like, it is a 15-second long shot of somebody just flickering a light in front of these two actors. And you could tell the director is like, and you're amazed that the plane crashed, and you're still amazed. So you're very amazed. You shot a plane down.
You're looking at your gun.
With your guns. Okay.
Could this have done that?
Halfway there, boys. You're just so amazed. To be honest, my biggest disappointment was that the quarry never showed up in the montage at the end.
It did.
Oh, it did?
You missed it.
Missed it.
It did.
Oh,
we saw all the gravel fall onto the car. I was so excited for you when I saw that. I was like, it's the quarry.
Oh no, I must have been checking an email. But yeah. we did get the what's his name? Smarmy Weasel, but now he's got a little bit of gray.
Izzy, yeah.
Yeah, Izzy.
No, he's had that before.
Of gray,
yeah. I actually thought Izzy was the one bright spot in this two-part episode because he at least felt consistent. I was like, oh yes, this is the Izzy that we have seen every time in Miami Vice. It was nice that they let him appear.
Yeah, he was running a spiritual enlightenment cult in which you needed to get
a wellness
naked.
Cult. Yeah.
Tom.
Yes, Brian.
So we're gonna keep on going, huh?
Well, here's the thing. There's one more episode of Miami Vice on our list because there are 3 more that were unaired, but Too Much Too Late is considered episode 20. The events of Too Much Too Late take place before the events of Freefall. In fact, it was confusing for people who were watching broadcasts because some stuff in Freefall alludes to things that hadn't actually happened in any of the aired episodes. But Too Much Too Late was never aired on NBC because of graphic content. It was the last episode of Miami Vice to ever reach any kind of air when it was on USA Network 6 months after the finale of Miami Vice. They showed it on USA Network January 1990, and it has guest appearances from CCH Pounder and Pam Grier. Okay. That would be the last episode of Miami Vice if you think it's worth it.
First of all, yes. But let me tell you about because of slippery freebie / Amazon stuff. I tried to watch the episode, but it kept advancing me to the next one. And then I was like, that's not the right one. And I go back and it advanced me again. But when I try to skip the opening sequence or whatever, the next episode opens with a bunch of military bros at a demonstration saying, this incredible weapon will stop cars in its tracks using magic. And then they're like, wee, wee. And just as they're about to demonstrate it, terrorists show up shooting Uzis. They steal it, and then they have the gun. The cops are behind them, and they go, pew! And the car, very comically, almost like Benny Hill style, is sped up, slowed down as it screeches to a halt, and they're all like, whoa, maybe it does work. And then after that, it's Dennis Farina being Dennis Farina. It's to be honest, I may just go back and watch that episode because it was pretty amazing.
So you trying to say you want to watch more than one more Miami Vice episode?
Not on this show. I'm just gonna go watch it.
All right. So for those following along with Spoiler Time, the last Miami Vice watch will be Too Much Too Late, with guest starring CCH Pounder of The Shield fame and Pam Grier, and we will talk about that next week. And we need your nominations. What should we watch after Miami Vice? It could be one episode of something. It could be a selection of episodes of something. Send us your idea, cordkillers@gmail.com.
I'm sorry. We did talk about Lawrence of Arabia, which you've already seen. I've never seen. That's a lot, though.
Okay. Well, it could be Lawrence of Arabia by dictate of Brian, or you can send us nominations.
No,
But
that's my nomination.
That you send us nominations.
Yeah, right.
You can nominate Lawrence of Arabia. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you, patrons, for supporting us. Patreon.com/Cordkillers, and we will spoil you again next time.
Yeah, spoilerin time. Brian will figure out the sound later.